Well, welcome everyone. I'm calling this meeting of the February 11th Recovery Task Force to order at 4:02 p.m. And I'll start by taking a roll call. So please unmute yourself and say here when I call your name. There are a few folks that will be joining us late who are participating in some city interviews today. So Jason Voice will be joining us, but in about 15 to 30 minutes. Marisol.
Here.
Thank you. Mike Brennan, another one of our members, is also on the interview panels and will be joining us later, again, 15 to 30 minutes. Next up is Nina.
Here.
Thank you, Nina. Pavel.
Here.
Great. Sam. Trish.
Here.
Thanks, Trish. Brookie Scholl will not be attending today. She has an excused absence. Grace.
Here.
Thanks, Grace. Janine.
Here.
Thanks. Shashi.
Here.
Hi, Shashi. Marlene will not be joining us today. She has an excused absence as well. Ron?
Here.
Oh, I got two Rons. So, Task Force member Ron.
Hey, Ron.
And we do have a guest speaker today, our superintendent, Ron. Stephanie is the last one on my list today. I'm not hearing that Stephanie is here. So if everyone could go on mute, it'll make the audio a little bit sharper until I call on you. We have some staff participating on the call with us today. The executive assistant to the mayor's office, Joanne, is here and will be helping us. And David Mitchell is our cable operator today. Wally Bobkowitz is also in the interviews with two of our other panel members, and he'll be joining us in about 15 to 30 minutes as well. So we do have a quorum, according to Joanne, and we'll go to the next item on our agenda, which is the approval of the minutes. These are the minutes of January 14th, 2020. And is there any objection to approving the January 14th, 2020 meeting minutes, which were provided on the online agenda? If so, you can indicate in chat box or just raise your hand. I'm not seeing anything. So hearing no objection, the minutes are approved as presented. Joanne, has anyone signed up for public comment?
No, Mayor Polly.
Thank you. And I just want to note in the chat that Task Force member Marisol Visser will be leaving a little bit early today at 5:15. Thanks, Marisol. So on the agenda items today, let's get right to the hot topics. Let's have our guest speaker, Superintendent Ron Thiele, give us a little update on the Issaquah School District and COVID-19. And today is a big day, Ron. Start off with your announcement.
Yeah, so thank you, Mayor Polly. Thank you for having me again to update the task force. Today is a big day for the ISD. I'm referring to it as my first day of school this year. Our first day started back in the fall when we launched our ISD Live, our remote learning. Then about 6 weeks after that, we had the first day of school for a number of our special needs students to come in person. And then today was the day we brought back, created the hybrid in-person choice option that about 60% of our families have taken us up on for our, today was the start for kindergarten and first grade. And oh my, are they adorable. You ought to see them. Their backpacks are as big as they are. And then when we come back from midwinter break on the 4th of March is when our second and third graders will be coming back. So this is in-person hybrid learning. It's 4 days a week, 3.5 hours a day. Everybody wears their mask, and we do attestations before they arrive at school, temperature check. It was just amazing to see how well prepared everybody was. First of all, how excited everybody was to be back at school. I've never seen so many happy kids to be in school. I will tell you, it was joyful, and the staff was thrilled, and everybody hearing everybody say, "Oh, I recognize you from the Zoom and, seeing that they could see friends that they had only known virtually in person was really a lot of fun. Kudos to everybody on my team who has worked so hard to make this day happen. Of course, we thought we might not be able to pull it off because of snow. I was feeling almost cursed, but hey, we avoided that, and we may actually get tomorrow in as well. So, and then, frankly, as far as I'm concerned, it can go ahead and snow a lot on Saturday. I think it would be fun for the kids. I know that can be a real problem for the city, so I don't want to, wish too many bad things on anybody, but today went really well. And so we're excited to begin the process of phasing in our 4 through 12 students as well. And as you probably are aware, it's a little more challenging when we start talking about older students, particularly the way that when you're thinking about virus mitigation. The real young students, there's a lot of research that shows that they really don't carry and spread the virus the way some of the older students might. So there'll be a little more work that's needed there, but I think it's all doable. We know it's important. We know that many students and families are not doing well in remote learning. It's very isolating. It's not my preferred way of learning, so I can certainly relate to it. Tonight at our board meeting, I'll be talking about kind of my hopes and plans as we move forward for our 4th through 12th grade students. And we've got a couple of different things going on there. We're working right now, and when I say working on, we plan and we prepare, but we also have labor negotiations with our various labor groups as we are bargaining the impact of this new way of doing school. But we're looking at bringing in support opportunities for our senior high school students who are struggling and could be in jeopardy of graduating on time, and some other groups of high school students as well that might be having some particular challenges with remote learning, such as our students who live in transitional housing, or students potentially who are English as a second language. So that's done a little differently given the state framework for how to educate students during COVID. We won't be able to do it quite in the same way we do elementary school, but those conversations are happening now. We're also looking at, as I mentioned, we've got 2, 3 already in the queue coming back. We're working on 4, 5, and then 6, 8. 6, 8, of course, is our middle school. Those are different buildings. And so it's a little different how we're planning for that. Ideally, it would be my hope that we would be able to start seeing those other groups of students phasing in by mid-March, and probably with our high schoolers even by sometime in April. We have expanded some other opportunities for our older students. We are now having we were doing athletic pods. We had about 800 students coming in twice a week to participate in conditioning and athletic pods. Now we're actually having practices, and I have to confess, they've changed WIA, the governing body of athletics, high school athletics. We've changed the season so many reconfigurations. I believe we have 4 or 5 sports now meeting, including, I believe, even basketball. So we're seeing more kids are able to access some physical activities. We continue to look for ways to expand other opportunities. One I will share with you that was a lot of fun for me last night. I attended a virtual cooking club from Maple Hills Elementary. About 50 families, students, elementary age. We're all learning how to make Rice Krispie treats. And it was so fun to watch that Zoom screen and all those kitchens across the south end of our district and all that activity that was in there. But continue to work on those things as well in order to create experiences for our students that will help address some of the isolation and anxiety that students are feeling, and of course continuing to promote good educational practices as well. So I do have some concerns. We saw higher than normal failing grades at the end of our first grading periods this year. So we're going to be talking about that tonight as well, and some strategies to address that. Getting kids in person is part of those strategies as well. So our enrollment, I think I've shared in the past, our enrollment is down and it continues to be down. And subsequently, we will be planning likely a reduction in force for the coming school year, which is never easy to do. But we were a district of 21,000 and we could go down as low as 18,600, somewhere between there and 19,000, which means that we'll need to do a reduction in force. That work starts now with our budget work for the coming school year. Of course, there's still some unknowns there. Will we see an enrollment bounce back, particularly if we're able to start next fall in a more in-person way? People ask me all the time, what do I think the fall will look like? I really don't have a crystal ball, but I do think that I'm optimistic that given the vaccine and given our ability to better mitigate against the virus, that we will have in-person options K-12. My hope, of course, is that we go back to a full-on brick and mortar school system, and that while I'm so appreciative of all the work everybody has done to create our ISD Live remote learning system, it'll be a good day for me when I can shut that thing down permanently. But in the meantime, we'll keep moving forward with that and planning our budget. And then, of course, the other wild card in our budget and staffing plans is what will happen in Washington, D.C. and what will happen in Olympia. Will there be additional funds that will come in, hold harmless funds? There's a lot being discussed right now. And of course, we pay close attention to that. Hopefully there'll be some more recovery money that will allow us to not have to cut too deep. And like I said, eventually I believe that enrollment will come back. It'll probably lag a year or so, I would imagine. And there's still, as the mayor knows, there's still growth potential in this community as well. So people ask me, we're opening 2 new schools, and I remind them that when we bonded those schools, we weren't even a district of 18,500. So we needed those schools then. We still need them. I'll be announcing the Boundary Review Committee has finished its work and has forwarded a recommendation to me, and I'll be talking about that tonight at the board meeting as well. Those 2 new schools are making great progress. They're slated to open a middle school 6 at the base of the Tallis community in the fall, and elementary 16 off of the Issaquah Pine Lake Road in Sammamish also in the fall of next year. And boy, it really right sizes our schools nicely. And so just that the final 2 pieces of our 2016 bond puzzle, we're still working on high school 4, elementary 17, but optimistic that work is all moving forward, because why not open and build new schools in the middle of a pandemic? So I don't know exactly if there was other more specific things, Mayor Pauley, that people wanted me to talk to, or I'm just here to take questions too.
Thank you, Superintendent. What I'm doing is I will keep an eye on the chat and let a few people fill in whether or not they have a question or comment. But I just want to personally thank you for the success of today and getting those kids back in school. And it's a part of the city and the county and the region's plan for recovery is
Yes.
Kids back in school. And so this feels like a gigantic step forward. And I am just so grateful for all the hard work that you guys must have done to make this happen. It's awesome.
Yeah, it really was fun. I was at Clark this morning, so I was right down in the heart of the city, and it was just so fun. And you're absolutely right. Families, I mean, we have amazing families, and I feel so much gratitude. But I will tell you, I think the kids need a break from mom and dad sometimes, and mom and dad need a break from the kids, and it's good for all of us. And to see those 5 and 6 and 7-year-olds coming off those buses today. And like I said, not a tear, did not see a single tear. And that's unusual for a first day of kindergarten, but they were excited today. And I do think it is a big step in getting getting things more back to normal, because we know that a lot of people rely on the school system as a safe place to send their child, 6-7 hours a day, allowing them to free them up for work and for other responsibilities. So we're just as thrilled to be back open and just anxious to get more kids and more staff and gradually start getting back to normal as much as possible.
I got to have a special little taste of what online school feels like yesterday when I connected with Joanne will correct me, but I think it was a fourth grade class at Clark, and oh my God, my heart went out to that teacher. It was so hard to manage, and there was some parents and grandmas, and it was the question and answer with the mayor, and grandma had questions, so I got to answer grandma's questions too, but my heart went out to that teacher. How hard it must be to manage any age group, all electronically. So, wow, that was quite an eye-opener for me. Okay, I've got a few folks lined up right now. I'm going to do questions first and come back with comments after. So I will be starting with Marisol. Marisol, if you want to unmute.
Thank you, Mayor Polly, and thank you very much for joining our meeting and for bringing all this great information and for all your work and for all you have been facing. I really appreciate the comment that you made about students who have been struggling and how to support them and how, bring them back if that's what they want. And my question is around, there is more data now about kids who have been struggling and also the kids who have been thriving, because I know there are kids who thrive in this environment, not my kids, I have to say. I have 3 different kids and they are very different. So the data that you have now has been giving you more insight of the kids who really need to go back. And if so, is it the majority of these kids, if they are not able to come back, do you know why? Because, I might have a few ideas. As in my case, I really want my kid to go back to school, but my situation is different. I have a little one who goes to preschool, so I know what that break of just 3 hours to bring them to school is, and I try to manage to work on those hours. But there's a lot of families who can't. And having the kids to go back just for a few hours is a struggle. I sincerely can see how they will just say, even if I need them to go back, I will say no. So my question is, is there any plans to support these families? Thank you.
Yeah, some of the ways we're trying to do that, Marisol, is by, as you know, we have kept our before and after school care program open since the very beginning of the pandemic, actually providing childcare for medical staff and first responders early on. Because you're absolutely right. I've had families who have said to me, I would love to send my child back in, and that's what they need, but until you have a full day, it won't work for us, and we recognize that. And so, some of that we might be able to mitigate with childcare. Some of it, I think we're probably just there will be families that until we can get back to a full schedule, they just won't be able to. So we're going to continue to support to the best of our ability as well our ISD Live remote. I know I said I'm looking forward to the day when I can shut it down, but I recognize in the interim that is still critical for us to maintain that a robust opportunity for families. I don't have a great answer for you because it's just right now, given the requirement of 6 foot of physical distance, that requires us to run a hybrid system. And that's what drives us towards this. Either, there's different ways you could do it. And it kind of depends on the numbers of people who want to access in person or remote. We're pretty close to a split, 55-45 or so. But if the numbers get too large, then we could change the model but then you only get school like 2 days a week. So you get a full day, but you only get it 2 days a week. Right now, we're feeling pretty good that we're able to offer the 3.5. And partly why it's not longer as well is the science around eating. That's something that is very concerning to teachers, being in a classroom with 15 other students eating lunch. So right now, as you know, we're not doing food service. We're doing grab and go meals. Of course, we continue to provide our meal distribution in our sites for those families that need that. But one of the complications is doing lunch, and then of course just having to manage the raw numbers of students. So eventually we'd like to be able to grow the day longer and longer. I mean, obviously, eventually the goal is to have it be back to a regular schedule. But yeah, so I don't have a great answer for you. As we are still in the pandemic and having to do hybrid and remote and meet all the requirements for COVID mitigation, there will definitely be families that they just can't make it work. That's partly why we are having families that are accessing their education asynchronously too, because I know I have students that are logging into their classes sometimes 9 o'clock at night, just because that meets the family schedule. So it's something we're aware of, we talk a lot about, haven't found great answers to yet.
Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent. Next question is coming from Nina.
Hello, this is Nina Milligan. Thank you, Superintendent Thiele. I celebrate with you this day. What fun. I'm glad that we got to spend it with you. And my questions had to do with what I thought I heard you say in workforce reduction. And I just wanted your help in connecting the dots. I see it seems to about an 11% reduction in enrollment, but then we'll have new schools. We have that 6-foot distancing that will probably last into the new year. So reduced class sizes. And so how does that all work together?
Yeah, thank you. It means that I'm less likely to be able to cut on the classified side. Those are the folks, my paraprofessionals, bus drivers, secretarial support staff, because I need a lot of them, as you were kind of just saying, in terms to operate a hybrid system. It's really goes down to what I won't need as many of is teachers. And so I would anticipate the bulk of the cuts will happen at the teacher ranks. And that won't all be classroom teachers, though we have support positions. We call them teachers on special assignments, teachers who support other teachers, whether it be with technology or literacy or math. I won't be able to maintain as many of those type of support positions as well. So, and it really will depend on just how big the budgetary hit is. I will tell you, I was feeling somewhat optimistic because of yesterday, a bill passed down in Olympia. That's going to drive about $2 million to us. And I thought, okay, that's a great start. And that basically is going to cover what we have spent just in food service, keeping employees on benefits. And because we furloughed employees, but we kept a lot of employees on benefits and stuff because we weren't sure when we were going to need them again. And I didn't want to dismantle my labor force. But I would anticipate that that's going to hit the hardest. I hope it doesn't. I hope I'm wrong about all of this and that there's a hold harmless bill that's down in Olympia that could save a lot of this. But the fact of the matter is you just don't need as many teachers when you have 2,000 less students. And so that's where I anticipated hitting. Just so you know the cadence of this, we are in the budget development process right now. We have in our collective bargaining agreement with our teachers union, we have to notify them of any potential risks by the last board meeting in April, which I think is the 22nd. We're going to notify them long before that. That's too slow of a timeline for us because, as you noted, we're opening 2 new schools. And what I'm going to try to avoid is transferring a teacher from, say, Maywood Middle School to the new middle school and then turn around and give them a reduction in force notice. So we're trying to avoid that by going out early, but if you're the CFO, that complicates your life because I'm giving you less data then to make your decision. So we'll get one indication will be kindergarten registration for the coming year. That'll help us see what that class is going to look like. And then again, we're going to continue to follow the the budget talks down in Olympia to see what it'll do. But I think just being fully transparent, I hope I don't have to do it, but I also don't want to surprise people and have people say, hey, where did this come from? What do you mean we're riffing teachers? I just, I shared this information with our union president and WEA yesterday. I don't think it comes as a surprise to anybody because they track our enrollment numbers too. I will remind people though that the language in the contract is riff and recall. And my hope would be that the virus will be in such a place we'll be able to offer more robust programming closer to normal than not. That will bring people back into the system and we'll begin to recall those staff members. My fear is that when you riff them, you lose them though. They go away and then you're out there having to try to hire other folks. When I came to the district 20 years ago, it was a fairly common practice because we grew so fast that we started the year understaffed. And I remember hiring staff teachers into October some years. And then having to break up classes. That was never fun, but we may have to do some things like that going forward too. It's that balance between wanting the system to feel right to kids and staff, but also meeting our fiduciary responsibilities. You've heard me say this before, I'm sure those of you who've been around me, I spend other people's money and I never lose sight of that.
Ron, thank you for that. We have another question and then we'll wrap up with a couple of comments as well. So thank you for those who have comments, for being patient. Ron, you had a quick question.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. This is Ron Fall. So, Ron, I have two questions. One, the cause for the reduction in student enrollment, is that because of homelessness, homeschooling, or are they leaving are parents leaving the region? And then two, is it district-wide or is it specific areas?
I think there's multiple causes, Ron. And yes, some of it is homeschooling. Some of it is private schools. Some folks have left the area. Some have left the country. And some of them say, we'll come back when you're back open. Others don't. So I think it's a combination of all of those things, homeschooling, private schooling, and just wanting to go someplace else where they might be able to get in-person schooling or where they've got childcare. They have to go back somewhere where they have a relative or somebody that can provide them with the childcare. It hit hardest in the lower elementary grades. And across the district, it's been fairly consistent. I will say that. I mean, it's not like it's all concentrated in Sammamish or the Renton Highlands or downtown Issaquah. Every area and every grade, every school has experienced some decline in enrollment. But the grade spans that were the most impacted were like K2.
Ron, did you have a second question as well?
Oh, he answered the
You got
second
it?
question. So
Awesome.
thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Ron.
We lost your voice, Mayor.
Oh, dang it. It means I have to buy pizza. I'm so tired of this new thing. I thank you, Ron. I just want to thank or welcome Mike Brennan and Jason Boyce, who were attending another meeting that I signed them up for. So welcome to both of you. Ron has done a presentation, and like I said, you'll be able to watch it again on the recorded version. I'm going to go and look to some members for some comments now. First up is Shashi, and followed by Pavel. Shashi.
Thank you, Mayor Polly, and thank you, Ron, for the update. I can imagine the excitement. I feel like one of those little kids today. It's so exciting to know that. But, considering the present situation of the virus, with the new variant, 1.5 times more infectious, and it looks like we need 80% of population to be vaccinated for the herd immunity, and cases are doubling in 8 days, not 10 days. The real data, a lot of other people are saying, is 8 days. And so I'm a little concerned about that and worried what will happen. Maybe we have to close again. So double masking, and you'll have to take very great care of all those guidelines you're following. So
Yeah.
exciting, but also worrisome.
Yeah, I certainly share those concerns.
And I hope we promote, more vaccination. And I'm hearing there are problems. My friend's vaccination, which was supposed to be, say, 1 week earlier, today is getting postponed. And there are a lot of reasons. Something about that was in the news, that those who are donors of the hospital or something, they're cutting the line. So that's and then rollout of vaccination is also a little bit of a problem, and I'm also in the queue. I hope I get it on time. But anyway, great information, very exciting that students are there, but a little bit of heartbeat. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you, Shashi. And we will have some discussion about vaccinations as well. We have Battalion Chief Glenn Huffman here today to give us a bit of a presentation and update. So let's go to Pavel. Pavel, you had a comment.
Yeah, hi Ron. Thanks very much for your presentation. So me and my wife, we own a preschool in Issaquah. So as you can imagine, this year we had way more kindergarten age children, and they're all planning to go back to school in September. And as you know, kids are blessing. Hard time is the teachers. So one of the things that I noticed from parents, they are still anxious and not sure about what's going to happen. So they need probably more information about re-enrolling. That's probably one of the part of low enrollment at this point, because I know not a single parent in our preschool right now sign up their kids for the upcoming academic year. And the other note also, the 21-20 school calendar is not up on the school district site. So that also makes people anxious. So all these little details are very concerning for them. Yeah, that's all I want to say.
No, thank you, Pablo. The board, we're going to talk about the calendar again tonight. That is a problem. Certainly recognize that, and we will be trying to get more information out to families too. So I know the big question everybody has: well, what's it going to look like in the fall? And if I had a crystal ball, I would love to tell you. I am somewhat optimistic, but there are still some warning signs out there that we have to pay attention to, as we were just talking about. But just know that everybody's working hard to try to get answers to those questions to the best of our ability, and hopefully the vaccine efforts will go well, and we'll be able to keep knocking this virus down, and we'll all get to a place where we just feel a little safer. I still have 45% of my families that don't want to send a child to school now for various reasons. And a lot of it is because there's still a genuine concern about the virus. And I understand that, so.
Thank you for that comment, Pavel. And Superintendent Thebe, thank you for coming in today. Being a leader at a time like this is extremely difficult. There is more that we don't know than we do know. And I have to say, I appreciate the efforts you have been making to get communication out, to stay positive, to stay clear on message about what you can say for sure and what you have to say, we just don't know. And also for coming and spending time with us at this community forum where we are able to get your message out and we are able to amplify what you are doing. So thank you for spending the time with us today. And again, a round of applause. The kids went back to school today. Let's say, hey, that is...
Thank you for the opportunity, Mayor Polly. I really do appreciate it. I'll look forward to talking to the group again in the future, and hopefully the news will just get more and more positive as we go forward.
Yes.
All right.
Nice to see you.
I'm going to slip away. I got a board meeting to prep for.
Yes, you do.
Okay. Take care.
Thanks, Ron. So the next item that we have, we're a little bit ahead of schedule, is the Issaquah Vaccine Community Partnership Update. And I'm really glad that we have Battalion Chief Glenn Huffman here today with Eastside Fire and Rescue. We have a lot of information to share with you, but I will caveat it with the starting point that both Glenn and I are very frustrated with supply issues. because we've done a lot of preparatory work. So I will let our battalion chief get into the details. Glenn, you are up.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the opportunity to speak in front of this panel tonight or your task force. So thank you for that. Just a brief, I'll step back, let's see, about a month ago, maybe a little longer actually, we at the fire department really realized that there just was no support from King County in the eastern area of the county, right? Bellevue East and kind of north of here. You see on the news that they have mass testing sites and vaccination sites down in South County, the Kent and Auburn, Federal Way area. And I'll tell you, I appreciate that. It's needed. The infection rate is 300 times or 3,000 times more down in South King County than it is up here. So, the data does say that they need to have those sites down in South King County. What that means for us is we've kind of been left on our own, and the fire chief decided that we weren't gonna stand idle. We felt like we have an obligation to do what we could and how we could. Didn't know what that even looked like. So we started some conversations. I came in to the office. I generally work shift work out in the field where I would come to, the major incidents and be the commander there. So I volunteered to come in and look at what we could do. And we thought, boy, what's the most vulnerable? Who are the people we need to get to? Well, it's the ones that can't get out to get an appointment. It's the ones that are not that mobile, regardless of their demographics and or living conditions. It could be any member of our community. But generally speaking, we're looking at our seniors, right? But there is another portion of our community that is also vulnerable. So we came up with the idea of, what if we were able to get some vaccine and go mobile? What if we could get our firefighters to go to people's houses and distribute the vaccine? At the same time, King County Public Health and King County EMS, who we operate under for our medical practicing license, they also had that idea. They thought that the beginning of January would be a great time to start to pilot a program as opposed to previously in the summer. That's just a side note from me. I think we should have thought of this a while ago, but we didn't. So we get spooled up. We worked with the Bellevue Fire Department to establish a process and get our people trained, and we are on the road. So effective last Wednesday, we started delivering vaccinations. Our firefighters were out in the street, and as of Friday, we had done 100. Not a huge number, but it's 100 more than we're going to be distributed, right? So we're pretty happy with that. We're actually pretty excited. Where we ended up going was to every adult family home in our community. And Eastside Fire and Rescue covers more than just Issaquah, respectively. We cover Sammamish and North Bend and Carnation and all of that area in between. But our primary focus, because the majority of our adult family homes are in Issaquah and Sammamish. So we dedicated and we worked with public health to get their vaccine and get out and get that distributed. We did it so quickly that we also had the opportunity to go to the Hutch House here in town and get out a large number of their folks vaccinated as well, because we feel, again, they meet the criteria of the state phase finder and they are vulnerable. They really can't get on the bus or get on in their car and drive down to Auburn. It's just not feasible. So that's what we've been doing. Unfortunately, on Friday afternoon, the county said, we didn't really say that you could go to congregate living facilities. We said you could go to adult family homes. And so we kind of got the brakes put on us. It was pretty disappointing. It was kind of demoralizing, honestly, because when you showed up at the Hutch House or at an adult family home and saw the faces of the seniors or the population that was there, they were just smiling ear to ear. They were so grateful to see you. It was absolutely an amazing experience that I wish other people could be part of, just because that joy you get in your heart is something you just can't get enough of, especially these days, right? So anyways, we had a little stumble. We've been in a hiatus or a lull since Monday and Tuesday. Yesterday we found another adult family home that we didn't have in our register, and so we went out and did another 20 vaccinations yesterday up in Sammamish. And we were able to pick up a few of the Issaquah police officers as well who hadn't had access, because believe it or not, Issaquah or any of the PD, they're not in the state phase finder. They're not ready to be vaccinated yet. And again, we feel like we have the ability to make a little bit of decision and a little leeway. And we had extra doses yesterday. So we had 13 people at the adult family home that we were able to do. The vials of medicine come in 10 doses per vial. So we had an extra, 7 doses. So we got 2 of our firefighters who still have not all been vaccinated for a number of different reasons, mostly supply chain. But we were able to get some of our police officers vaccinated as well. So a great day yesterday. These are just special days. I love them. They really light up my life, knowing that I'm doing at least a little bit for somebody somewhere, and it's making a difference in the grand scheme of things. So I did get word just before this conference call from King County Public Health, King County EMS, that next week they are going to let us go to some senior housing facilities. We are already on the schedule for Eastridge House, which is a low-income housing facility just on West Sunset over by the fish hatchery. Mm-hmm. So we're going to be there on Tuesday and Wednesday, right? So we hear the supply chain is kicking back up. So we're excited about that. We'll see what happens by end of next week. Some other things you might hear about as far as what Eastside is doing is we've partnered with the Snoqualmie Casino and the Snoqualmie Tribe. They, being their own sovereign nation, they're able to write their own rules and acquire their own vaccine. Over a period of about 3 weeks and 4 weeks of working with them, we had a delivery of 500 doses of vaccine show up yesterday at the casino. We have already had the plan in motion, which we are going to vaccinate the tribal members, which is clearly within the guidelines that have been written, and they are part of a vulnerable population. So we're excited to be part of that. We're starting tomorrow. We had a fairly large event set for Saturday, which we canceled about an hour and a half ago. We don't want everybody out on the road trying to get to the casino on Saturday if we actually do have a snow event. So we're going to push it back to the 20th, and we're hoping to get about 300 vaccines in the arms of the tribal members and that population next Saturday. Super exciting. And again, they have their own chain that they receive their vaccine from. So it's not regulated by public health on where we can go. The firefighters are really just pushing the medicine, which is pretty cool. Along the same lines, we have given through a partnership with Issaquah and Sammamish and Eastside Fire, we have decided to move ahead and start building our own mass vaccination site, something you've seen on the news down in Auburn or Kent. We're doing the same thing at Lake Sammamish State Park. We are the field of dreams. We are going to build it, and they're going to come, right? Meaning the medicine, the vaccine. So we're just going to go forward with it. We're well into the process. We have already worked out an agreement with the state park. We have already contacted contractors that are going to set up the tents and the buildings that we might need, the trailers, right, for different sorts of things. We're contracting with parking authorities that do stadium parking. They're going to come and do the traffic control for us. We have our firefighters are trained to deliver the vaccine. Again, that is moving along. We want to be operational March 1st. Okay. You might have heard in the news today that Microsoft and Public Health partnered up in Redmond, right? So we got on the phone and said, what the heck? And the city of Redmond really didn't have anything to do with it. They didn't even really know about it. This was something that Public Health and King County EMS kind of put together on their own using it. It's exciting, right? We need more vaccination sites on the east side, period. It's unfortunate that not all the parties that probably are going to be using it. I mean, there's certainly a lot of Sammamish residents that would be going to somewhere in Redmond up by Microsoft, right? So again, excited they're building that. We're doing the same thing. We're super excited. The partnership within the city of Issaquah and the city of Sammamish is something I haven't seen ever. With any of the entities that I've been affiliated with in the fire department. This is something that is bringing us together, and it is special to watch. The relationships. I'm working right with our human services divisions in Issaquah with Brian and Monica and Lisa. They're doing my scheduling in Issaquah, and they are just so awesome to work with. I also have the same partnership in Sammamish, right, with Rita and Matt, and they are communicating with Lisa and Brian on a daily basis. Autumn and Cease, the two PIOs for both cities, they're putting out the same message to everybody. This is really good stuff for both of our communities and something to be proud of. I wear my
Glenn
emotions
gets
on my
really
sleeve.
excited.
I do.
So, Glenn, before we get to comments and questions, I'm going to add a little more structure around the efforts, because you've done a fantastic job at describing not only how eager Eastside Fire and Rescue is to help in an extremely unusual situation, but how much you enjoy it and how well received it is in the community. So beginning in January, I brought together a vaccination partnership, and we meet on Mondays from 10 till 10:30. And it's Swedish Hospital, the Issaquah School District, the City of Issaquah, Costco, the Chamber of Commerce, and then we reached out to the City of Sammamish to bring it in as well, because we share a school district, we share a fire department, all of that. This group has been talking about how we can look at three different things. One is, could we host a mass vaccination site? Could we create a drive-through site? And can we do a mobile operation? And Glenn has talked about both the drive-through site and the mobile operation. And while supply chain is the #1 issue across the country and in our state as well, and within King County Health Department, we want to be that group that is ready to serve East King County, and we want to do it at our cost and take as few resources as we can from the County Health Department. So the planning efforts have been going on, and again, as Glenn has mentioned, what we're coming up against is supply chain issues. But what I wanted you to know is that we are advocating not to take vaccinations from areas that have got it now. We're not asking them to slice and dice the pie differently. We recognize why they've prioritized in the areas they have. We're just trying to tell them what a bunch of eager little beavers we are and how ready we are when that vaccine supply ramps up, that we're ready, staffed, resourced, rented equipment, everything that we need. And so Swedish Hospital has been a great partner.
Yeah.
They have sent staff out to vet different locations. If school was not going back in session, one of the things that we were proposing was to use Issaquah High School. That's sort of on the back burner right now, as the superintendent told us that school usage is going to go up. And so now we're focusing our efforts on the drive-through and the mobile. I'm really glad that Eastside Fire and Rescue was able to receive any doses at all. At a city level, I also wanted you to know that I have proposed to the City Council that we invest in this early now. And I've asked them for about $250,000. I believe at some point in time we will get money from the feds. We will be reimbursed for it. But money shouldn't be a problem here. We just need to get going. So council is looking at a package of requests that I've made to fund some of the items that you had talked about at the last Recovery Task Force meeting. And one of them is being ready to provide vaccines. I've also been calling and emailing your county reps, elected reps, King County Councilmember Kathy Lambert, as well as your state representatives. There are many people who are playing in this field right now. Federal allocations are going to pharmacies through contracts. That's CVS and Walgreens. That's not something we're a part of. They have now expanded that to Costco Pharmacy, and we're very lucky to have Costco headquarters in town and have Costco participating in our meetings. They made the announcement, I believe it was about a week ago, that each Costco Pharmacy was going to be getting 100 doses a day and doing their own scheduling. The other thing that I wanted to talk about was that we recognize that we have a gap we have to work on, and that is that as vaccine supply becomes available, it's really difficult for seniors to figure out, do I go to my healthcare provider? Do I call Costco? Do I call Walgreens? Do I call the fire department? And so we have been using the staff that Glenn referenced at the City of Issaquah to make sure that we're collecting the names of seniors who qualify in this phase, so that as supply is available, we'll be able to reach out and help them make appointments. But right now, there's so many reservation systems. We recognize it's causing enormous anxiety in our senior community. So we still have some kinks that we have to work out in order to bring people levels down. This has Shouldn't be resting my notebook on the keyboard because it keeps trying to mute me. City Administrator Bobkowitz has just joined us, and Glenn has gone through a lot of the information for Eastside Fire and Rescue. We do have some comments and questions. Administrator Bobkowitz, was there anything else you wanted to add to about our vaccination collaboration?
No, other than without the mayor's leadership, there'd be no site in Issaquah. And I think that on the one hand, thank you, Mayor Polly. On the other hand, it's a real sad commentary on where things are at as far as the vaccinations. We're really having to be our own community advocate to make sure that this resource is there. It's a little bit of a double-edged sword. On the one hand, I think the county is rightfully focused on communities in need in other parts of the county, but at the same time, I think we need to make sure that there's access for our residents. So my thanks to Glenn and Andrew Stevens at EFER. We're just going to continue to plow forward, and we want to make the tent as big as possible, and including Sammamish, including our state representatives, county representatives. I think that's what's going to bring this forward. So I think that's where we're standing, and really thank this task force. I mean, it is through your direction, your inspiration, through the discussions we had at the end of last year and into January, I think that really put this into gear. Your words to us was make sure we take care of our residents, and that's what we're trying to do with this.
Thank you, City Administrator. I will say just anecdotally as mayor, whether I'm in a mass face-to-face conversation or on a phone call or an email, the #1 issue right now in the community is when is that vaccine rollout going to get to our area? So it is my top priority, and it is what I spend most of my time on. I am going to start with questions, and we'll start with Shashi, and Grace, I will get to your comment at some point as well. So Shashi, question.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Glenn, for wonderful job. And I have a few questions. Number one, you mentioned about the adult family homes. There are a lot of condo-based communities of seniors in Issaquah, Providence Point, University House, and there are some more condo complexes. In Providence Point, there are around 1,100 units. Most of them are single widows and some widowers and some couples. So my assumption is we are around more than 1,500 people here. If you could whether you could come to some such places and give us as soon as possible the age range here. Even if they allow 55, mostly it is in 70s and up to 104. And I know my friend of 104, she doesn't want to take vaccination. She never did in her life, except one, and that was polio. She's my great inspiration. This was one. Second, I wanted to know which vaccination are you giving, Pfizer, Moderna, or JJ, Johnson & Johnson, which is only one dose, and some people may want that. And then, how many people are involved with you who are going and doing this? Because more people, more coverage we need more coverage and faster due to the new variants. And there was a talk about somewhere they're talking about going round the clock. So I don't know about round the clock for you going to somebody's house and giving them, but if you come to my door at 1 a.m., I'll be there. I'll take it today. Just mentioning that. So that's all I had to say. And I thank you so much for doing it. We need to get our people vaccinated as soon as possible. Otherwise, we'll have to retract back, which we don't want to see. And we don't know how many more mutations it could have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shashi. Glenn, got a couple questions.
Yeah, thank you for those questions. Let's just start with Providence Point as an example. They are on our radar. The city staff is already contacting their leadership and establishing whom of their residents really are immobile. There are some that could get out and about and get out to a vaccination site and or a pharmacy. We want to gather as close to what we can in terms of immobile people. They really stroll around in Providence Point and go to the clubhouse, but they really can't get farther than that. That's who we're focused on identifying. And when the vaccine is available, when we get it, we're going to hit them. They are on the radar. They are on the short list. You mentioned some other, and I will say that back in November, the federal government partnered with Big Pharmacy to go out to these larger facilities and adult family homes and administer the vaccine. So that has been done. The reason we got so quickly completed with Issaquah and Sammamish's adult family homes is because Big Pharma had already been to 70% of them. As an example, we know where Timber Ridge at Talus is, right? We're all familiar with that big, huge building. They're done, 100%. Vaccinated twice. First and second doses have been completed by Big Pharmacy, the partnership with the federal government. So we're fortunate in our area that a lot of our facilities such as that have been completed already. So now we're able to focus on a Hutchinson House, the Eastridge House, Andrews Apartments, and other maybe smaller homes, and or identifying the individual home of somebody who's immobile. We're working through the senior center, and that's why Issaquah has offered, and I graciously took them up on having 3 members of their staff work on this. It's a full-time gig, and we are getting there. We're trying, and you asked about adult family homes. Adult family homes is kind of like a nursing home, but it's in somebody's house. So they're mostly immobile, bedridden, or need 24-hour care, and they live in people's houses, and they have 4 or 5 of these beds in their homes, and that's what an adult family home is described as, is according to public health. So they've been addressed. What are we doing going forward? Providence Point is going to have something there. Yes, we also would love to distribute vaccine 24/7. It's just not available. Maybe someday we would do it. And honestly, I agree with you 100%. We need to do as much and as fast as possible, and we are. The mayor touched on, the pressure that is being applied gently. Those are my words, not hers. But we are talking with our constituents on a daily basis, trying to get more vaccine and availability. And when it's coming, we are going to use it. We're not going to waste a day. We're not going to waste hours. We do have time frames during the day that we can use the vaccine, only because there's shelf life, and we have a reporting period that is required upon us. So we're semi-limited to that. But if I could put 3 teams on the road every day, I would. The vaccine just isn't there yet.
Thank you, Glenn. You also have a question from Jason, followed by Mike Brennan. Jason.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Huffman. Your enthusiasm is infectious, and let me tell you, it's going to be completely necessary to take this fight to the virus. So one thing you mentioned that you ran into a little bit of a planning problem with King County Health, as far as you being able to go out to congregate settings.
Yeah.
None of us have a crystal ball. It sounds like our lead health expert, Dr. Fauci, is now predicting, hopefully, that it's open season in April for all vaccinations. That's going to require a lot of people on deck, and I imagine it's also going to require East Side Fire and Rescue. Probably the mobile units, like you said. Are you guys already trying? I know you guys are limited in your resources. You guys serve a wide swath of area. Are you guys starting to look more? And I'm sure you're working with the city. It sounds like you're working with the state park to set up either big vaccination sites or temporary mobile sites, things like that. I'm sure you probably have a lot of participation from cities. And is that infrastructure already being laid down and you guys is pre-planning, hopefully, that we are in an open season in April?
Yes, we are. We are already there. We are planning. The reason I mentioned the tribe partnership earlier is because when we are done inoculating the tribal members, our agreement is that they will give us access to their vaccine, right? And so they might get more and more faster than we can get it from public health. And so that's what we can use as a stand-up event somewhere. Just one day our mobile unit shows up and we've got 80 people, 100 people, whatever doses, and we put a sign out there, and that's what's going to happen, right? It would like to be a little more scheduled than that, but that's a potential. The drive-through facility at the state park, we think we can do 500 a day. Staffing wise, you give me the vaccine, I'll put it on the street. Honestly, staffing is not an issue for me. I have a lot of ways to entice the firefighters to get out there to do it. But most of all, it's the pride of being able to be involved. And that goes a long ways. I appreciate it.
Glenn, I'm going to add to that too. Jason, we're going to continue our vaccination collaboration meetings, even through the operation of different whatever models we can to do vaccine delivery, because we know there'll be hiccups. One I've heard down in the South is that translation services have been an issue. So if you are bringing in through either a drive-through or a mass vaccination site, we need to be able to talk to the people in the car and get the details. And so we will keep our coordination meetings going through, and we've been talking about having maybe to stand up a drive-through or mass site for up to 6 months. It will be a huge volunteer lift. We'll be coming to the community. We'll be looking for volunteers to help with parking, help with signing people in and all of that. But this has to be the #1 focus. And I just want to go to make sure it's really clear when people leave. I participate in a lot of meetings with King County Public Health. The issue that we had is that because they have a limited supply, we are only given permission when we're authorized to give vaccinations in a very restricted set of circumstances. And it would be nice for us to have more leeway to say, can we do something else? And I'm really good about pushing up on boundaries to say, let's do more. But we do have to live within the guidance that they have, because they are, the public entity, where the trust comes from. I think it was Shashi or someone else who mentioned that donors and others are dumping the queue, and that just doesn't feel fair or right. And so they are going to be strict taskmasters for us to keep us on task. But I hope that answers your question.
One thing I was going to mention is, and again, this is probably a little bit of out-of-box thinking, but and again, to Mayor Pauly's point, I don't know what the limitations are. I know Mayor Pauly would probably do anything to help get all of us vaccinated, but actually turning, the street in front of the high school, turning that into a long driveway where people can get vaccinated, shutting that down. Or you mentioned the tribal area up east, and I'm thinking the Snoqualmie Casino would be a perfect place, right? The whole thing is laid out in a racetrack where people just go right through and then they dump right back out onto the freeway. I don't know if those things are being talked about.
No, Jason, that's great. That's perfect. That is why we have Swedish Hospital involved. They're really familiar with the physical layout that you would need in order to manage the traffic, have places for the service to be provided, be able to watch people, medically supervise them for 15 minutes after. And so that's part of what Glenn is reviewing with other battalion chiefs and staff, is whether or not we have all of those pieces together. So, because we're going to have to manage it all. We were very hopeful about Issaquah High School, but the return to school is pretty much going to take them out of the picture. We may come up with the hard choice of saying school isn't going to be used through a certain period of time. Can we use it for vaccinations for 2 to 3 months? I mean, these are going to be compromises and hard conversations that we're going to have. And I want to get to Mike Brennan with a question.
Thank you, Mayor Pauly. Chief Huffman, first, thanks so much for all that you're doing. This is one of those other duties as assigned that you really took on and are really making the most out of it. And I know the community certainly appreciates that. So you answered one of my questions already in one of your responses related to getting to people who are at home, single family homes, and unable to get out, disabled, the elderly, et cetera. It sounds like you've been working with the senior center. So that's great. Great approach to trying to deal with that. I guess my question is about kind of consistency. It's very disjointed as you think about how vaccines are being distributed now, and it's very confusing, as the mayor pointed out. People they don't know where to go. The registration system or the appointment system is tough to navigate, and there are all sorts of different approaches. I was wondering, is the Eastside Fire kind of learning from or sharing best practices on approaches with other regional partners so you can create more consistency for the community out there and how vaccines are being distributed and how people can get access to those vaccines?
Yeah, and thank you for those comments. I appreciate that greatly. Yes, we are sharing best practices. We have a twice a week joint meeting with all the fire chiefs in King County or task force leaders that we've all split up. So there's 40 plus on the call. It's led by King County EMS, which is, they're in charge of all of us when it comes to our medical. So we have this joint call. We review best practices. We share them. We've actually had that in place back in March of sharing practices. because it was mostly about personal protective equipment or PPE, and we've evolved into vaccine. I hear twice a week from the Puget Sound Fire Authority, which is in charge of the Kent and Auburn mass vaccination sites. We've been there to visit. We're learning. That's the reason our site in Lake Sammamish is going to be set up really smoothly and go really well for us. We've already learned. There was another part of your question, and Mike, I'm sorry, I forgot it.
Well, I think you've answered the question. I think it's about, there's confusion about the whole registration system too and how that all works, or feels a little disjointed to folks.
It does, and we've recognized that, and unfortunately, everybody's experiencing it, right? Regardless of your demographic or where you live, anything, everybody's experienced it. I will say that we are reaching forward, though. One thing that Sammamish and Issaquah and North Bend are doing for us as a partnership is they are reaching out to the seniors, right? So it's not just the senior centers, it's Eastside Coalition of Seniors. We're calling clergy, we're calling anybody, and when I say we, my city partners are reaching forward every day to make contact with anybody that might know of somebody who's going to have difficulty getting to the vaccine. The intent of the mobile unit really isn't to do everybody; it's to get to those that just can't get out, and those are probably the more vulnerable than the vulnerable, right? Because if there's probably something medically with them that they can't get out. So we're pushing forward on that, but I appreciate the ask.
Great.
Mike, I can add to that too. We have been amazingly successful at pivoting at every turn, and there are about 52 more turns to come. So it's like building the airplane or flying the airplane while you're building the airplane. We know that booking vaccinations right now is not working. We know that there are many, many different ways to do it. And we are, as cities and as part of a larger regional organization, trying to figure out how we can be able to assist the public in navigating this maze. We're not there yet because there are new suppliers coming online every week. Costco just came on. And they all have their own booking system. And so it's going to be bumpy and clunky, and it's going to look like a patchwork. But if we can see an opportunity to make it easier for a senior, if we can help them navigate the process and get the appointment, that's going to be like the golden ticket. That's what we're trying to head for. We don't have that right now. So we're working towards it. Shashi had another part of her question, Glenn, that didn't get answered. And that was, which vaccines is EFR using right now? Is it Pfizer, Moderna, or Johnson & Johnson? Do you know?
Well, you saved me, Madam Mayor, from typing because I was putting it in there. But
there you go.
we are using Moderna. It is what we've been trained to. That is all that's available to King County Public Health at this point. There is no when you place your order for the medicine at the public health levels, they don't get to ask for certain things, with the exception of second dosage. Right, we get what the government provides. Johnson & Johnson is not on the market yet, but we are fully focused on Moderna. If we have some people in our community that need a second shot of Pfizer, we have a few ways that we might be able to navigate maybe 10 doses, but it's not. They would be encouraged to go back to where they got it initially. So we're really stuck with whatever is provided to us, and right now that's Moderna.
Thank you, Glenn. That's super helpful. Swedish Hospital has been letting us know how hard it has been for them to have a guaranteed supply. They can put an order in the preceding week and receive something on Monday that is half or 1/10 of their order and not necessarily the pharmacy that they were told it was coming from, which makes a huge difference. Do I need a freezer or do I need a fridge? Or do I not need it? Do I not need either? They don't know until the shipment gets to them. And so that is sort of I'm going to say it in a nice way because this is hard, but that's the sort of dysfunction that is in the general distribution system right now. Not just supply, but you don't get your full order and you may not get the one you're planning on getting. So again, we're hoping that those bumps get worked out. We know that there are some more pharmacies that are coming on, pharmaceutical companies that are coming online. But it's really tough. Honestly, if you talk to anybody who's working in the medical industry right now at a hospital or anybody at Swedish, please thank them. Their life is their jobs are ridiculously difficult right now, and they're doing an amazing job with it. And I think I saw another question in here, or not. let's see. No, I think I'm going to go back to comments then. We'll start with Grace, and then I believe Ron Fall. Grace.
Thank you, Mayor Polly, and thank you, Glenn. I also was very energized by this conversation and love to see all the passion and the cool work that the firefighters are doing. I guess it's more of a comment kind of question, but I'm working at Evergreen Hospital right now in Kirkland, and I see a lot of senior citizens come in very just like anxious about getting the vaccine and not knowing how to approach it and just wanting that information because right now a lot of it's like just online. There's like I've seen the online website with the different vaccine locations, but it obviously fills up very quickly. And if you try calling, it's like a super long wait time. And so a lot of that is very stressful for senior citizens that don't know how to use technology well. So I really am glad to hear about like this new mobile program we're doing. And I guess maybe I don't know if this is possible, but I've seen a lot of senior citizens coming into hospitals, just like trying to ask, like, even though they say like, don't come in if you don't have an appointment, like, but they don't know what else to do. So they're just like coming in. So if we had like a flyer or just like a handout that like that we could pass out to senior citizens that come in to tell them like a more accessible way for them to like sign up or be put on a waiting list or something to be contacted. And I don't know if like, or we could like somehow take their information down and help them sign up if they're not as like technologically proficient. Just trying to think ways to like increase accessibility because I realized like how big of an issue it was because like I'm 20 years old, so I've never had issues with signing up for things online, but that was definitely a good like reminder for me, just like how to increase accessibility for vaccine distribution to those populations.
Grace, that is a great comment, and I see that Glenn has put his email contact information in there. Joanne, I know that we are directing folks to call our Parks and Community Services staff at the Senior Center right now. So, Grace, we are trying to do it. It's amazing that you have firsthand contact with seniors so that you can emphasize to our team right here how stressful it is. Many of them, this is the focus of their day is just going through a bunch of phone numbers or calling relatives and trying to do it. I can't imagine how stressful it is. So thank you very much for that. I'm going to go to Ron for a comment.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. This is Ron Fall. So my next door neighbor yesterday told me that her 90-year-old mom and dad were independent living. We're trying to spend several days trying to get appointments for vaccines, and they finally, in frustration because they're not technologically savvy, decided to show up at the hospital, and they were turned away. So it is an issue, and to Grace's point, it's just funny. I heard it yesterday, and my neighbor was just venting about how frustrated she was that her parents were frustrated about getting the vaccine, and technology is not their thing. They don't even have a cell or they don't have a smartphone or a computer. So, yeah, what do we do about those seniors?
So, Ron, I think as a city and a fire agency working together, we will pass on information back to our communication team about how to get the message out. It's going to be a somewhat unsatisfying message. It's going to be, we can't get you your vaccine yet, but we can take your contact information and we will call you when supply is available. And so it's only like a half of a good feeling. But maybe it will relieve some anxiety for folks to know just that they're on a list and that their contact information has been collected. So we'll take that back and we'll work on that. And Marisol, good evening. It was nice to have you. In chat, you're stepping out. Have I missed anybody who had a comment or a question? Because if not, I'm going to thank Glenn very much for his presentation and all the information and all the work they do and all of his enthusiasm that is absolutely infectious. And pass it over to City Administrator Bobkowitz. I believe the next item on our agenda is an update on the work plan.
Great. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, members of the task force. Good evening. From the meeting that we had a month ago, we went to the City Council really with a package of 4 different initiatives to talk about. The first we've just finished discussing regarding the vaccine. But there were 3 other initiatives based on your comments that we've moved forward with, and actually will be on the City Council's agenda for action coming up next Tuesday, February 16th. The first is the issues regarding emergency housing and shelter. You made very clear the importance of being able to make sure that we're helping people in need, especially in the area of emergency shelter. The moratoria on evictions remain. While that will come to a conclusion and that will cause a number of our community members hardship, there are individuals in hardship right now. We are seeing increasing amounts of homelessness, increasing amounts of camping here in the community, and with the winter weather that we're going to be about to experience, that makes it even more pronounced. So an initiative that is on the council's agenda for funding on Tuesday is an allocation of $45,000 for a 90-day program to provide emergency housing assistance. What this mostly will be spent on is vouchers to allow people who are homeless to have a place to sleep with certain conditions, and then also some flexibility of funding to help those in need who may need to relocate to a different area and who may have other needs that might help them become more self-sufficient. We're working very closely with the Issaquah Food and Clothing Bank. The city allocated funds in 2021 for a homeless assistance coordinator. That individual has been very active in the community, and as we have been working with him, it's clear that there's a need for some miscellaneous funds to help in some individual cases. So as part of that $45,000 ask on the council agenda on Tuesday evening, $4,800 is money, flexible funds for emergency housing. So that is the first piece that will be on the agenda, again, coming from the discussions here. Mayor Pauly, would you like me to go through the other 2 items and then take questions, or take questions with each item?
I think it would be great, Wally, to go through all of it. And also, I just want to remind the task force, too, that this is sort of the outflow of your work over the last few months, paying attention to all the information we're taking in. And feel free to attend. You can either watch this meeting, that council meeting that Wally has referred to. You can provide a public comment if you feel really strongly about any or all of the issues. And so please join in that conversation if you can. So, City Administrator Bob Quitz. Let's continue.
Great. So those are the first 2 initiatives. The third initiative deals with business assistance, and we heard again loud and clear from you and the members of our boards and commissions that we need to do another round of business assistance. So we shared that with the City Council. There was some concern expressed at this task force as well at the council that the last rounds of funding were done on a pull of the hat random basis based on certain minimum qualifications. So there was concern that perhaps that was no longer appropriate moving forward. So what we are proposing on Tuesday evening is $250,000 of additional small business grants. This will be broken up into 3 separate categories: home-based businesses, bricks and mortar businesses here in Issaquah with 10 or less employees, and then bricks or mortar businesses with 11 to 25 employees. So for the home-based businesses, it would be 10 grants of a maximum of $2,500 for $25,000. For the bricks and mortar with 10 or less employees, it would be a maximum of $5,000 for 25 grants, or $125,000. And then bricks and mortar with 11 to 25 employees, maximum grant of $7,500, 14 grants for $100,000. This would be money coming from the city. There are perhaps opportunities for reimbursement. As I'm sure many of you are aware, President Biden has a $1.9 trillion COVID recovery and response package. Of that, $360 billion have been allocated to state and local governments. So there will be funds, if that passes, that will come through to Issaquah, and so the city could use those dollars. But at this point, that's not certain, and the mayor's recommendation to the city council at this time is that the need is urgent and we need to move forward. So those grants for $250,000. This may again not be the end, as with the emergency housing, we're looking at 90 days. This is not meant to say that this is the last support for businesses. We've heard from nonprofits in the community with needs, so there may be additional rounds, but the mayor's proposing to move forward with this package of $250,000 of additional grants. The fourth and final area that was discussed by the task force at its last meeting is something that Mayor Pauly has called fit and fun outdoors. I mean, we heard from you saying it was important to get people outside, it was important to deal with mental health, it was important to, have people start reconnecting in a safe way. And so Mayor Pauly came up with a fit and fun outdoors initiative, which we shared with the City Council. And there are a variety of components to that. There was some concern on the council again about funding because we're not sure that this would be reimbursed by anyone. So what we're going to be proposing on Tuesday night is to move forward with two parts of that initiative. The first is outdoor fitness equipment. You all had talked about the importance of folks being able to exercise, be able to go to they sell these little mini stations where you can do pull-ups and chin-ups and stretch. And so we are proposing to purchase several of these for $35,000 and to locate those at different parts of the community. We also talked at your last meeting about what we're calling walk and learn tours on city trails, where we could put up some signs, either have a QR code or just some information about a topic, and the people could get out on a trail and learn something, either using a mobile device, not using a mobile device. So we're asking the council for $5,000 to move forward with that, for an initial total of $40,000 for the start of this fit and fun, healthy initiative. So those are the four areas that you talked about at your last task force: the vaccine, emergency housing, business assistance, and the fit and fun initiative. And so those are the things we're running with, and three of those four will be on. We're not moving forward with an agreement yet on the vaccines. I'm not sure if that was mentioned at the top of the meeting or not, but we are working on a three-party agreement between the City of Sammamish, the City of Issaquah, and Eastside Fire and Rescue to move forward with the costs associated with mass vaccination and mobile vaccination.
Yeah, I did
A
mention
lot of
that one.
information in a short period of time, but I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, City Administrator Bobkowitz. Could you remind the task force of the date of the council meeting that they'll be discussing?
It'll be on Tuesday, February 16th. We are dark on Monday for the President's Day holiday, so the council meeting is on Tuesday.
And anybody wishing, they can either watch it on our YouTube channel or they could attend. It's the same WebEx format meeting that we have right now, correct?
That's correct. Or if they wish to send comments to the council, they can use the city council at issaquahwa.gov email address, and those emails go to all members of the city council.
Thank you. I've tried to be, as clear as I can with the council that a lot of these great ideas are not Wally's in mind. They come out of this task force that's been working on this stuff for almost 9 months now. And I want to give you credit for the good hard work that you've done and the creative ideas that you've brought. So I am not seeing any comments or questions. I will leave it for a few minutes while I provide some updates to see if anybody does have any questions for the city administrator. One of the things I wanted to remind you all of is of our next meeting date, which is March 11th at 4 p.m. And also at that time, I believe, according to Joanne, that is the last meeting we have scheduled. And I appreciate that when I invited many of you to join this task force, I told you that it was likely for 4 months, probably ending in August or September. I feel very strongly that as we move through the vaccination phase, your advice and guidance and questions are super helpful to me as mayor and also to the administration. So we'll be asking to extend this and see if there's an interest in extending out through at least the first phase of mass vaccination when it gets here. We can add that to the agenda for next week and talk about it as an item and see. I recognize we're taking your time and my time frame has really extended beyond what my initial ask was, but I do appreciate all that you have done and the thoughtfulness that you put into each of these meetings. Still no comments or questions for the city administrators, so I guess I'll be seeing you all next month. Oh, hang on. I have a QUIC/ from Jason. I think he means quick question. So
Yeah, that's what I get for using my bad hand. So one of the most sustaining things, I think, after this whole pandemic has passed, one of the most sustaining part of our legacies is going to be the streetery, Madam Mayor and City Administrator. What's going on with the streetery? Are we bringing that back in April, May? I mean, What's going on there?
Super good question. When we set it up as a pilot, I did that under mayor's emergency powers. It was trying to kind of put some of our traditional rules and procedures aside and just get something going. It is so well loved by the merchants, by those that attended it, that we're looking at making it potentially a permanent spring and summer feature. So we have some work to do with the council. We collected a lot of information on traffic, whether or not it was working as a financial stimulus for businesses, impacts on the neighborhoods, et cetera. And Wally, I believe sometime in March, we're bringing all that information to council in a study session, and our proposal is going to be to make that a permanent feature of our summer activities.
Yes, Madam Mayor. I think we're looking primarily at 21 and moving forward with a plan for 21. I don't know that there's a commitment beyond 21, but it would start sometime in the spring and then end probably end of September is what our plan is.
So we will keep going with this. It was one of the best ideas that came out in terms of community appreciation. It was like giving people a gift at a time when it seemed like there was nothing that we could do. So great idea. And yeah, Jason, we're doing it through 2021. Thank you for asking that. Well, thanks everyone. Thank you for coming. Thank you for your contributions. And I will see you all in March. Stay well and stay healthy.